Welcome, Team OnCore. I'm excited to have our guest, Armana Chanel, on today. Armana, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. So
Good.
for those of you who don't know Armana, she is a professional golfer from Omaha, Nebraska, living in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area. She's a former collegiate golfer at Nebraska Omaha. She's turned pro in 2016. She competes on the Symetra Tour, the Women's All-Pro Tour, and the Cactus Tour. Thank you for coming on today.
Oh, absolutely. Not like we have that much going on right now. So.
Well, that's a good segue into my first question. How has life during the global pandemic changed for you?
It was pretty weird right at the beginning because the first thing to go was sports, right? So I was actually 2 days away from getting ready for my first Monday qualifier of the year. And of course, that canceled, and then everything else followed with it. So some of the stuff is starting up in May, some of it in June. So I'm just kind of on hold right now, just, in a little bit of a flying pattern just to kind of see what's gonna open back up. But yeah.
Well, for our listeners and viewers that might not know your background, can you just give us a sense of how you became a professional golfer, how you came into the sport?
Yeah, so I started playing when I was in my early teens, about 13 years old. I just did it for fun with my family, and then I'm generally a really competitive person anyway, so I got really competitive with it pretty quickly. And then I started playing high school, started out shooting like 120 my first year, freshman year. And by the time I hit my senior year, I set a couple state records and won Class A state in Nebraska. And then I was like, oh, I think I'm good. So let's go play some college golf. So started out playing some college golf and graduated in 3.5 years. Couldn't wait to get out, and moved to Arizona shortly after. And then I waited probably about 5 or 6 years before I decided to turn pro. And so I've been giving it a go since.
So how does one go from barely being able to break 100 within a few years in your high school career to setting records and shooting under par? I mean, I think a lot of listeners would be a little shocked to hear how fast your game improved.
Yeah, I think a big part of it was I played other sports to begin with. So it wasn't like I had no athleticism and then started golf. So I most recently had gone in from, getting my black belt in Taekwondo. So I think the balance really helped with golf and the weight shift. And most people don't know, like, being able to balance and switch legs is actually really important in golf, the weight shift. So I think that made it a lot easier, and the flexibility with it. And I think it's just easier to go from shooting 120 to 100, and then 100 to 90 is a little bit harder, and then 90 to 80 is a little bit harder than that. And then, it just gets harder the lower you get. And so right now it's the hardest to go from, shooting even to shooting 65.
Sure.
But those big jumps happen when you just start removing the big errors. So when you learn to, maybe hit out of a bunker more consistently, where you're not taking several shots to get out and you just get one. Those things add up so quickly when you're playing golf. So I think that's the biggest changes.
You might have had a slight advantage, right? Your father is a teaching golf professional, is that right?
Yeah, he is now. When I was learning, we were learning at the same time.
Okay.
So yeah, so he picked up golf basically when I did.
Wow. So much for the advantage. Okay, I was wrong.
I know. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you, for the viewers at home, what tips could you give them to help them with their golf games?
What tips? Well, I'd say that if you haven't gone to see a swing coach yet, that you should find someone you trust and go see a swing coach. Easy, quick tips and tricks are nice, but if you don't understand the fundamentals of the game, which can take up, some time to build up that knowledge, then it can be really hard to understand the rest of it. So I always recommend people see a swing coach, and not just once. Like, find someone you trust and go to them a few times.
Any tips for how to go about finding the right instructor?
Yeah, so because I've gone through it a few times, because I don't always work with my dad. So I would say, one, word of mouth is really nice when you can talk with people and find out someone that they've maybe worked with where they really enjoyed their experience. That's always positive. If there's someone that that is playing really well, or you really like their swing, finding out who they work with is a really positive thing to do. I found someone here that I know he works with quite a few mini tour players and women who have come up on the LPGA. And so I felt comfortable going to ask him if he'd be open to working with me. So I think that's a really big thing. And then I always have questions for my instructors before I start working with them, just so I can understand their method and how they want to work with someone. Because I have certain things in my swing that I really like and I don't want to change. But I know some instructors don't love it. So I have to find someone that is willing to work with me and not try to completely change me. So.
Great advice. And I have seen your swing in person. It's pretty awesome.
Thanks.
with that intro, can you tell us a little bit about our round at Mountain Shadow in Scottsdale, Arizona?
Oh, yeah. So Mountain Shadow is a par 3 course in Scottsdale, and it's recently renovated. Really fun par 3 course now. Beautiful views. And we went out on an afternoon and just decided first time we met actually in person.
Yep.
So we walked the course, and, it was just fun to get out. And then we get to one of their signature holes over the water. And you had said, "Hey, do you mind if I take video of you on this one?" I was like, "Yeah, no problem." 78 yards, and I used a full swing 60-degree wedge. And and it went in. So I had my first hole in one.
I think I'm still in shock from that, and just the fact that we decided to record it and it was your first hole in one. It was pretty awesome.
It was.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And to many more in the future.
Yes, I hope so.
So next, tell us a little bit about your tour schedule coming up. I know a lot of things are up in the air with COVID-19, but there are some tours. I believe the Cactus Tour is still functioning. Can you give me a sense of what's on the docket for you in the next month?
In the next month, I'm kind of just waiting. I haven't been quite ready to play the Cactus Tour yet. I've been doing a lot of work to help my family's business because they were really impacted by this situation. So I've just been kind of on hold. And with everything being shut down, I wasn't sure if I wanted to play the Cactus Tour just yet. And the thing is no one else is competing. So, I'm not really at a disadvantage at this point, but Symetra is sending out their tentative schedules already. So we're looking like, end of May for the Women's All Pro Tour and June for the Symetra Tour. So they're trying to push everything back into the schedule. It looks like instead of ending in September, it's going to extend until November and December. So they're trying to extend the season farther along the year. Q School has changed dramatically So they sent out something to us, and I don't know if they've announced it publicly. I can't imagine they haven't at this point, but Q School no longer is going to take place in August for us this year. So I've got a few extra months. It's going to be in October. So be ready for that. And yeah, at this point, I'm just kind of waiting and adding stuff to my schedule, hopefully, as it comes.
Great. It seems like it's been a good time to maybe reset and kind of work on some mental parts of the golf game and just really plan out a roadmap ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For golfers that may want to follow your journey, how do you recommend they do that?
So the best way to follow me is just on my Instagram at Armana Chanel. I try to post as much as I can, not a whole lot going on right now. But when I do travel and I do compete, I share quite a bit about what I'm doing, so people can always kind of tell what's going on.
That's great. How do you see the tour or golf evolving as a result of COVID-19?
You know, I'm not sure at this point we're aware of what kind of changes it's going to make, because for us this year, the problem is mini tour players trying to find host housing. Well, we're not going to be able to stay in host housing, so we have to spend more money. But purse sizes are kind of decreasing because companies can't afford to put the sponsorship into our purses. So it sounds like everyone's trying to just work their way back to some kind of normal situation. So I'm not really sure what it's going to look like after this, but it's weird right now.
Yeah, certainly unprecedented times. I know there's a lot of golfers out there who are able to play, and others in states where courses are closed down. Certainly different measures at each course have been taken to maintain the social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we're fortunate in that it is a unique sport where it's outdoors, and for most of us, we're able to be able to maintain that social distancing and keep playing.
Definitely.
So the Cactus Tour is still in season, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard some news. I know the Outlaw Tour on the men's side, a lot of professionals are flocking to these tours because they're the only places where professionals can play right now.
Yeah.
So have you seen any news around the Phoenix area in terms of players and kind of professionals that maybe haven't been on the tour that are playing?
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, kind of right when it started to get serious here in Arizona, I was actually scheduled to play in the Cactus Tour event at Moon Valley. And I think, a handful of people at least knew that I was going to play because I was on the sheet, and I actually did tee off on the first day, and I made it through 16 holes before it got dark. And I ended up withdrawing because of just everything else going on, my family's business. It just didn't feel the right time for me. I had other important things going on, and golf could take kind of a back burner at this point. But there was definitely quite a few players there that were not generally playing on mini tours. The winner of that week was, I believe it was Anna Norquist won. And yeah, so that was really weird. I was actually supposed to play with her that day, but they adjusted the tee time. So instead of 3 off of 1, they were only playing in 2 thumbs. So I was put back in the group behind her. But yeah, that's pretty common right now. I mean, I believe on the Outlaw Tour, someone who won on the European Tour recently had won one of the recent Outlaw Tour events. And yeah, it's just really interesting to see.
Great. And last question, can you tell us one thing our viewers might be surprised to learn about you?
Surprised to learn about me. Oh my gosh. That's a hard question. I think that most people would be surprised that I'm kind of a homebody. You know, I'm married. Most people don't know that. I like to kind of hang out at home and watch movies, and I really love to read. I read like 3+ books a month. So yeah, I don't think many people know that about me.
Any book recommendations?
I am currently reading The Devil in the White City. It's a nonfiction book about the World's Fair in Chicago in the late 1800s. And it's really well written. It's just a dense book, so be prepared, but it's really good.
Great. Well, thank you for all your time today. For our listeners, any questions, please leave them below. And we really appreciate having you on.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you guys having me.
Great. Take care. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.